like to welcome everybody back today to Caravan of Consciousness. This is episode 8, and today I've got Kevin from the Drake Michigan podcast. His sidekick, Anthony, couldn't make it today, but we've got Kevin here. So the Drake Michigan podcast, I've only just recently come across it through my good friend Mark Devlin, and they touch on everything from meditation and relaxation techniques and sleep music to the law of attraction, metaphysics, psychic abilities and mediumship, to the nature of reality and all things in between. So welcome, Kev.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. So starting with the podcast, like it's only relatively new, isn't it? It's about, what, a year old? Yeah. So what prompted you?
I think we sort of, what we in now, December. I think it just literally is over a year, you know, since we launched it. And it's sort of still finding its way, because we never really knew what it was going to be, you know, when we first set it up. And what we decided to do was we when we first started was in the other room, and we had like some quilts and blankets to try and muffle the noise. And we had like a phone, and we had an old camera, what you had to press start every 12 minutes to do a bit more recording.
Yeah.
And what we decided to do was just have a chat in front of the camera, which was obviously just two men having a chat about our experiences, what's happened. And people seemed to sort of, you know, tune in and like it. Like, we were only expecting probably one view or something like that. Yeah. And we was quite surprised. And then we started inviting people on to have a chat with us about their experiences and share their journey. You know, it didn't matter what it was. It might have been like relationships, or it could have been health, or it could have been spirituality, it could have been law of attraction, anything really. Because everyone has a different outlook on life, or they have their own what they believe this reality is. So we we were loving that, you know, just having that conversation with people. You know, I'm not saying we agreed with everybody we had on, but it's certainly interesting, and it opens your eyes to looking at things from different angles. And you'll know yourself, being the host, you get that great position of being able to listen and ask questions about it.
Yeah.
And we love that. And then we sort of, I probably have to go back a little bit, because obviously the Drake Michigan was a promise that I made 15 years ago. And I made a promise to, you know, some people call it God, the universe, the creator, whatever. So when my life was in a different place 15 years ago, I actually had walked away from the whole subject, everything to do with spirituality, mediumship, law of everything, really. And I just thought, right, I'm just going to go enter the rat race again. Good 9-to-5 job. I had a young family at the time, and I just thought, do you know what? I've had enough. But I said to the universe, or God, I said, if you give me a platform in the future to tell people stuff or share experiences and all that kind of stuff, I said, I'll happily do it. But no, I wasn't prepared to do it from the position and the platform I was in at the time, because it just didn't feel right for me. It just didn't feel comfortable.
Yep.
And then 15 years later, I phoned up Anthony and I said, listen, I've got a few things to tell you, because we hadn't spoke for probably a few years. And he was like, why? And I said, I've got a few things to tell you. My life's changed a bit since we last spoke. So I filled him in on what's been happening. And I said, do you remember I said I'd always start a platform to share, you know, everything? And he was like, yeah. And I said, well, the platform, I'm in a position to start the platform. And that's where it all grew, really. And that's why we decided to do it, because at the time we kept telling people it's time.
Yes.
Because we kept sort of getting synchronicities and this sort of message saying it's time.
Yeah.
So therefore we said, do you know what? It is time. It's time we did it. Yeah. You know, it's been 15 years, which is long enough. And And you know, so that was the Drake, Michigan platform. But then a lot of people ask, then they say, well, where does the name come from? And we'll go into that a bit more. But basically, so Drake is from the name Benjamin Drake, who was my spirit guide. So that's where that comes from. And Michigan is still an ongoing adventure, really, because although my spirit guide Benjamin was close to the area of Michigan in the US, he was a US Marine. There's a load of synchronicities and events that have happened in my past that's made me feel that Michigan has some part to play in my future.
Mm-hmm.
But we've never really got to the actual reason why yet. But I just know it's profound and it's really important.
Yeah.
So we sort of merged the two names, and that's where Drake, Michigan comes from.
Yeah.
So,
and it is a very interesting story, which we will get into soon, about your spirit guide. But now you said that you backed away from everything 15 years ago. So do you want to bring people up to speed just briefly as to how you got to where you did with your mediumship or your psychic abilities or whatnot?
Yeah.
And then why you decided to pull back from it?
Yes. So one thing I always used to say, like people said would, oh, did you have abilities when you were a kid and all that kind of stuff? Some people, you hear these stories. Some people are born with abilities. Some people are naturally open to receiving messages or feeling, empathic. And I wasn't one of them people. I have to say that. So when I look back at my childhood, there is a few things where I look back now and I think, oh, well, that was interesting, but I sort of bypassed it as just, growing up as a kid and dreams. And so on a few occasions, I always remember I'd woke up in the night and I used to share a bedroom with my older brother and sister, and they were quite a few years older than me. But on a few occasions, I'd woke up and I could see my brother and sister sat up in bed. So obviously I sort of leaned over and sort of got out of my bed to see, like, why you sat up in bed, but their bodies were still fast asleep in bed.
Yeah.
And it was so obviously now I look back.
So you were seeing their etheric body?
Yes, it was. Yeah, but obviously at the time I didn't. If anything, it was probably more fearful at the time.
Yeah. Yes.
But I just remember seeing that, and so when I'm older now and I look back, I think, wow, it must have been astral traveling or the like you said, the astral body. And so there's a little few things when I look back now as my child, and I thought, oh, maybe there was something there, but I always dismissed it.
Yeah.
And it never really played any role in my life whatsoever. And up until the age of about 28, I'd been brought up in probably what you'd class as a council estate, poverty background, childhood, social surroundings, a little bit difficult, that kind of stuff. But I'd always been a bit of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? My friends would always say, oh, get Kev to do it. Kev will know the answers. I'd always been a little bit older in the head than a lot of my friends, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even things like opening a bank account, like even before, my friends wanted to do it, I knew how to do it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Did you have 3 or 4 paper runs or something?
Yes, did all that.
My dad did too. Yeah, my dad had a few paper runs. And
I always used to, not always probably legit or whatever. I always used to do a bit of wheeling and dealing when I was a kid at school as well.
Yeah.
Like I'd sell the biscuits to the other student, the other classes, or the chocolate.
Did you sneak the pop bottles from the back of the shop back into the front door?
all sorts.
Yeah.
So I think the groundwork was set from childhood. The only thing that's followed me into adulthood from childhood, though, which I look back now, which was quite profound, seeing as my social surroundings were quite, like I said, were quite rough and quite poverty. And even though I was probably a bit of a Jack the Lad, if you like, I always had this feeling that you wasn't supposed to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
Which for the type of character I was growing up, that was quite weird.
Yeah.
Right. So I always thought, if you got into a fight, that was fine.
Yeah.
But just do your best not to hurt people's feelings, because it has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
I remember asking my parents, and they said, "We don't know where it's come from, Kev. You always used to say it, like as a kid."
Yeah.
So so there's a few things, but as I grew up, like I sort of I got my first franchise business, which was fruit machines and a pool table, and I set that up while I was working, and I loved the fact that I was earning money somewhere else while I was working. Are you okay there?
Oh, yeah, and I've got a cat that's just about to pounce.
No,
I'm still listening, but I'm just watching
no,
where
no,
he's
no.
going. Yeah, hang on. I'll just grab him because I don't want him to knock the internet out. Come here, you. Oh, okay. I've got him. Here he is. This is Jasper.
Oh, hello, Jasper. Yeah, so I love the idea of earning money while I was asleep in bed or while I was at work, at the same time. So I sort of that again, the entrepreneurship there. And then very early on, like I bought my first house when I was 19. I'd left my home, which was the West Midlands. I'd moved up north to be with a holiday romance, my partner, who I'm still with today with kids and everything else.
Yep.
And I bought my first house at 19. And by the time I think I was 23, we'd bought my first business as well, which was a bakery. So, and I'd always been interested in food and that kind of stuff as well. So I always wanted to work my way up to sort of being the manager or the boss, if you like. But even then, that wasn't good enough. I wanted to be the owner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never really fitted the mold of working for other people.
Yeah.
I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be the driving force behind stuff. Yeah. So, and life, to be honest, life went pretty well for the best part of 10 years. We'd sort of built everything up. So at that point, I had my first house, I had a car, we had the new business. It was going quite well. We even bought a second shop and then a third shop. And we had like quite a lot of staff working for us, and things were going, pretty well. And then the first crack really was my partner's mother. So my mother-in-law, she was divorced and she met a new partner. And basically he didn't want her to be part of this business because she was a silent partner in the business, in the bakeries. So basically the dynamics changed. And so she wanted out. And then we had to start thinking about, well, how are we going to buy you out?
Yeah.
So at the time I come up with this brainwave, I thought, well, do you know what? If I sell my house, I've got enough equity in my house, I could buy her out. And then I thought I'll get a building company in, because one of the shops that we'd bought was that big. We planned to build a flat above it, and we could have lived in the flat. And then I thought, well, then I'll buy another house in a couple of years' time, that kind of stuff. So there was a method in my madness. I had an idea.
Yeah.
But also looking back now, it was actually going it was during a recession. So it's easy to look back now and say, like, everything, all the doors seemed to shut. Everything seemed to go against us. So it's like, I remember we opened the third shop. And we sort of, let's say I think we needed to earn like about £10,000 a week to break even and, cover everything. And I think we opened the third shop, and that wasn't doing as well as the other two shops. And we were probably earning about 7,000 or 8,000. But the thing is, £2,000 a week soon starts to mount up.
Yeah.
And so, and then suddenly, so the cracks and the pressure were starting to show.
Yeah.
So I always say, my life was going great, and financially things were good. And then suddenly it sort of had an upside down swing. And then one night when I was working, because I used to work every night in my bakeries with my mates. I had my friends work for me, and we used to make fresh bread and fresh cakes and everything. And I was making bread one night, and something caught my attention out the side of my eye. And as I turned, there was just a young man stood at the end of the table. So it's like I did a double take and looked, and he was still there. And he sort of just leaned forward and looked over towards me. And without speaking, I could feel his words.
Yep. So
And
he was
I
talking
felt,
telepathically.
yeah, I literally
Yep.
could feel his words. And he said, like, it was like, we're going to have some fun, Kev. And then I sort of screamed. He disappeared. He was gone.
Yep.
My friend come running through from the other room, and he said, like, what's the matter? I explained to him what had happened. Obviously, made a big joke about it all. Obviously, he said, "Oh, you've probably fell asleep,
Yep.
at the table."
Yeah. Trying to
Oh,
rationalize.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and I thought I'd gone mad.
Yep.
I was asking myself, like, my date of birth and where I was born, my parents' names. I was just, and I thought, have I had some kind of psychotic episode?
Yeah. And I guess
Because I
because you'd
thought
been under stress, you were
exactly.
probably, wondering, is this stress related? And yeah.
Yes, because also as well, I had no other explanation at that point for
Yep.
anything like this, because it hadn't been my past. It wasn't something I was into. My life was very much focused on building an empire of bakeries and trying to retire by the time I was 45, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So after the jokes had calmed down and we talked more about it, and I said, it was real. I know it was.
Yep.
I know what he looked like. And one of the things that was quite profound was the genre of his clothes wasn't from our era.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more like 70s.
Yep.
Like he was clean and smart, but it was more like, and I always say, do you remember the Happy Days, the Fonz?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And it was more like very cool, very casual.
Yep.
And I remember like his teeth, and I remember his hair.
Yep.
And it was just a profound experience. And then from that, I thought, I'm gonna have to go to the doctors. I'm going to have to go and tell him what's happened, and and I don't know, anyway. But then, so what happened then was Sean, who was my mate who'd come running through.
Yep.
A couple of days later, he'd stepped on a leaflet, and this leaflet was like a spiritual shop that had opened in the area. So he said, "Hey, Kev," he said, "I think we should go to this." He said, "And tell everyone about your ghost or your next."
Yeah.
And I've got to be honest, Amanda. I was like, I was quite scared of stuff like that. It's not for me. Do you know what I mean? I'm not. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm into that kind of stuff. But we did decide to go, and we took my partner with us as well. We said, well, we decided to go for a reading. Like a spirit, and I'd never done nothing like that before, because I was one of them as, I'm scared what they might tell us, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we went for this reading at this shop, and all three of us, we went down and we saw this woman, and individually, and nothing happened. It was just like, it was just so random. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I always say that, and I don't mean it to be like derogatory to the person, but like, she would just say things like, "Oh, did you consider being in the army when you were younger?" And I thought, and then it's like, you're trying to like, well, did I? Do you know what I mean? Did we all not think that?
You were trying to fit what she was saying into it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I just thought,
yeah.
But the thing is as well, like, when you first sort of come into this arena, if you like, or this genre, you sort of do put them on a bit of a pedestal and trust, because you think, oh, they must be getting some kind of information or something.
Yeah.
So, but I come away from it, and my partner and Sean, they both said, like, what a load of rubbish.
Yeah. So
but we still had to pay for it.
Yeah. Oh God. So she sounded like she might have been a bit of a charlatan, maybe.
Well, I mean, again, it sounds harsh to say that, because who knows? But and for us at the time, we definitely didn't feel anything had happened.
Yeah.
But what we did do was, there was a sign up on the wall that they were holding like a development class. So again, Sean, ringleader, he was like, "Let's go to the development class on Tuesday night." He said, "It'll give us something different to do. All we do is work." He said, and he'd gone through, he'd been single for quite a few years, like through a divorce and everything else. So he was like, "Come on, it'll give us something to do." And straight away, my partner, Joanne, like, she was like, "I'm not coming to that." what a load of rubbish. Like
Yeah.
she said, you can go on your own. And but so anyway, so we did end up going to this development class, and they did this thing. They sat us in a circle, and they say a few prayers and do a bit of meditation and this kind of stuff. Which again, bearing in mind, I think I was about 28 at the time.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was just like a load of I was taking fun out of it, really.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was probably,
Yeah.
and we met some lovely people while we were there. We met 2 or 3 friends while we were there. But one of the things that stuck out was they did this thing called psychometry, where basically everyone in the room decided to put something into like a box, like a watch or a necklace, and then what they did was they passed the box round. Sounds like an 80s party.
Yeah.
What's called so
it wasn't keys, at least.
yeah. They passed the box round, and you grabbed something out the box, and you didn't know whose it was.
Yep.
And I ended up with this bracelet. And then I just did what the person who was the teacher, if you like, so you just relax, closed your eyes. And when I was doing it, I thought, oh, that's weird. I sort of had like pains in my knees.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's not mine. And then I closed my eyes, and sort of it was like I had like I don't know, like a daydream. Like I could see, and so with my eyes closed, I started seeing things like a Weight Watchers certificate, and there was a few other random, little things. Anyway, I never thought much of it.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, when the people said, "Oh, what did you get?" and I just said like, "Oh, I got this Weight Watchers certificate. I got this dog. I had some pains in my knees." And then this other lady whose bracelet it was, she started to say, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense to me. I've got arthritis in my knees." She said, "I've just come from Weight Watchers tonight before coming here." She said, she'd got a dog, but what was quite interesting, what will come out there. So I must have saw like a big Rottweiler in my closed eye vision, but she had like a little Chihuahua.
Who thought he was a Rottweiler?
Yes, yeah. So anyway, so obviously I can understand and I can explain that now, but back then, it was just so random.
Yeah.
But I definitely thought that's a bit weird. Never thought much of it. And we went a couple of weeks running to this class, and then it just fizzled out. Like the new people kept coming, and they would do the same thing again, and we just thought we're just paying money to. We're not learning anything.
Yeah.
It's more turned into more of just like a meetup.
Yeah.
So then from there, one of our new friends from this group had said, "Why don't we go to a spiritualist church?" And again, I'm thinking, "Oh, what am I doing here?" Normally, I used to like having a game of football. I'm going to the pub, hanging out with my mates, that kind of, and I'm like, and now on a Wednesday night, I'm going to go to this spiritualist church.
Yeah.
But what had happened is Sean had actually met a girl at this development circle, and he ended up going on to marry her.
Yep.
So if anything come of that encounter, that meeting, and going to that happened, and they ended up having a couple of kids together and everything.
Yeah.
So so they say everything happens for a reason, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And we certainly met a couple of people who we resonated with, and they were okay. You know what I mean? They seemed like normal people. They didn't seem like they were a few sandwiches short of a picnic or nothing like that. So, so from that, we went off to this spiritualist church, and when we first got there, we sat at the back, and there was like a gentleman. There was quite a lot of people in there. There was like I'd say about 70 to 100 people in the room.
Yeah.
And and all sat in chairs in rows. And there was this gentleman, and he must have been like the demonstrator who was giving readings for the evening. And he started saying like, "Oh, I've got chest pains." And like about 10 people would put their hand up. And I just thought, "Oh, what is going on?" He was talking to one person on one side of the room, and then someone on the other side of the room said, "Oh, that makes sense to me." And he said, "Oh, I must be with you then."
Yeah.
And I was just like, so I was laughing. I was like, what? I got to be honest. I thought that at that point, it's an act. It's a
Yeah.
con.
Like a
That's how I
circus.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had no reason to think otherwise at that point in my life.
Yeah.
Um, but then what they did is after they do this demonstration, they ask people if you want to stay behind for a development circle. And I always tell people this because it was only £1 and you got a cup of tea. And that is the only reason why I stayed, because
Yeah.
I love a cup of tea. And I thought, I've come this far, I might as well have a cup of tea and
Yeah.
stay. And so anyway, so
Yorkshire tea, proper
Yorkshire
strong.
tea, yeah.
Proper strong.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. So we sat in this big circle. I'd say about 50 people stayed for this development circle. And they started it off by saying like the Lord's Prayer. So it was really nice, really, I suppose. Like, and the woman at the time, the teacher, if you like, she was walking people through like a guided meditation. And she just wanted you to sort of relax, close your eyes, visualize yourself walking through the forest, or, towards a house or by a tree, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was trying, but I couldn't really get into it. And I kept looking at my friends to see if they were doing it.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what are we doing here? Anyway, I tried to do it. And I remember as I sat there with my eyes closed, I sort of felt like I thought somebody was behind me to my right-hand side. So I opened my eyes and looked, and there was nobody there. And that happened a couple of times. And I thought, do you know what? Forget it. I'll just close my eyes. Everyone else is doing it. I'll just go with it.
Yeah.
So I closed my eyes, but I couldn't visualize the forest or the trees and all this kind of stuff. In my mind's eye, it was like someone had turned on a TV screen, like we're looking at each other now, with my eyes closed. And I could see this large gentleman with like a chef's jacket on. And he was sat at a computer, and there was a window up high to his left. And he was eating like a burger, like a Big Mac, while he was tapping on the computer. And I was suddenly become aware of this really pungent smell, like BO and urine, and it was awful.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I felt words, and he said, "My name's Tank, and my wife Anne is over there." And I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So and at the time I thought, I'm having some kind of amazing imagination here. Whoa, this is ace. So I carried on watching it a little bit more. And basically, the scene was set. He was just sat at this computer, tapping away, eating, the smell, the window was open, blah, blah, and, this kind of stuff. Anyway, then they brought us out of this meditation. And the lady started going around the room, and she said, "Has anybody got anything they want to share with people?" And a few people said, I could smell cigar smoke. Some people said, I had some flowers or some colours. And she come to me and she said, "Do you want to share what you've got with people?" And I went, "I've not got nothing." and she went, "Yeah, you have." which I thought that was quite weird, because I thought, "How do you know I have?"
Yeah.
And my friends were like grabbing me, saying, "Kev, no, don't do it, like,
because they thought you were going to take the piss.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then the woman said, "Come into the middle of the circle and share it with everybody."
Oh,
right?
No.
Well, so I gets up and I walks into the middle of this circle, strutting my stuff, and I just said, it's quite bad, really. I just said, I had this fat man, and I was using swear words and things, and I said, "I've got this fat man called Tank. He reckons his wife Anne's here." I said, "He stinks of piss. He stinks of shit." I said, "He's just scoffing his face with a burger while he's sat at a computer." Blah. And I'm like, anyway, and my friends are laughing behind me, and they're going, "Kev, what you doing?" Like, kind of thing. And then next minute, this woman puts her hand up, and she said, "I'm Anne." And she starts crying.
Yeah.
And she said, "Tank was my husband." And so I was like, what? And then she said, we used to have to sit him by the window because there was a smell. She said he had this form of cancer.
Yeah.
And she said it didn't matter how much we give him to eat. He wasted away. It just ate him away until there was nothing left of him. And she said, and his only love was his computer.
Yeah.
So I was sort of, in one mind, I was thinking, well, that's what he was. That's what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I saw sort of like in the chair, he was quite a big man.
Yeah.
And he was eating the burger. But what she said, I thought, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Because he's
it's almost like he was trying
eating.
He was trying to explain to me, it doesn't matter how much, and again, I only worked on that later on. At the time, it was just like, I sat back down like a rabbit in headlights.
Yeah.
I just like, I was like, what has just happened?
Yeah.
So there was an element of fear.
Yeah.
But there was more excitement.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, I've never looked at life. Like, I thought I'd found the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
I thought, whoa. And because I remember thinking, whoa, you don't die. You just go somewhere else, and I think at the time, I sort of had this perception of life that we live here, and then when we die, we're just in another room without a body, and then there's God sat on a chair up here, and my thinking at the time was, there's a red man downstairs if you're bad. That very much, your childhood indoctrination, concept of Christianity, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've never really given it any interest.
Yeah, which that in itself can be quite daunting, because if you go on what the religious indoctrinations tell us about, if you're bad, you go to hell, if you're good, you go to heaven, and then the concept of heaven, like, God's sitting on a white cloud and you're just in eternal bliss for eternity, and some people would think that's pretty bloody boring. So
yeah,
yeah, so
no,
yeah,
and it's amazing how many of us have that sort of perception of that's. Because let's be honest, I don't think we really give it much thought, really.
Yeah.
The majority of people go through their whole life never really asking the big questions, never really giving that topic much thought.
Yeah.
And we can go into all that after. But that was sort of the start of my own spiritual adventure, if you like.
Yeah.
And I went on for probably a 3 to 4 year period where I just learned. I wanted to know everything, right? So one of the first things I did was I bought a pack of tarot cards, and I wanted to learn how to learn the tarot and what it meant. And I remember sitting with Sean because he was sat there, and the first time we did the tarot, I don't know if ever you've had a box of tarot, but you get like a little book. Yeah. Well, you get like a little book inside, don't you?
Yeah.
With the meanings.
Yes.
And so we invited this woman and her daughter over to our house. We didn't know nothing about them. We just thought we'd use them as guinea pigs to practice on.
Yeah.
And so we did this Celtic cross spread, and my mate started reading from the book, and he started saying things like, oh, have you got a few financial difficulties, or are you under stress at the moment? Because there was some pentacles and swords and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But while he was doing that, when I'd turn the cards over, I could feel information, which had never happened to me before. So as soon as he finished talking and he said, "Do you want to say anything, Kev?" I was like, "Too right, I do, yeah."
Yeah.
I was like,
so were you getting pictures in your mind like you did before?
No, this was just sat like you and me, but I could feel stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hard to describe, but I could feel that she was cheating on her husband. I could feel that he was cheating on her.
Yeah.
But then I could feel that she had 2 kids and one was in university. And I could feel just information about him.
Yeah.
So in fact, when we told her what I was feeling, she got very angry.
Yeah.
She said, "How do you know this stuff? Have you been going through my rubbish?" And I was like, what? But so that was the start of it. And I thought, this is, I was so excited. I just thought, this is amazing. So what happened then is we started inviting anyone, and people started telling other people, like, hey, go to the baker's house, the psychic baker's house.
Yeah.
He gives you a reading, right? Yeah. And my missus used to be cooking in one room for the kids. And I used to have people sat in my hallway, all queued up, and we used to bring them in one at a time, practicing on them.
Yeah.
Just because, and I wasn't interested in the information for the person. What I was really getting a kick out of was the level of the information and what was happening in my mind and what I was feeling.
Yeah.
So that was sort of my payment, if you like. I was like, look, I didn't need any money off them. I was just enjoying, that.
Yeah.
Because I suppose it's like going to college and learning a new skill, or it was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, I had like a 3-year period, and it just kept growing and growing. So it's like we ended up on the front page of the local papers. And then I got a phone call to travel down to London to go to these TV studios. And then there was an opportunity to work on like telephone lines. And then I went to other spiritualist churches, and then I started doing demonstrations. And then I'd like be doing demonstrations to like 50, 60 people. And we used to hold this thing called a psychic supper. So we'd do a demonstration for an hour, and then we'd give them fish and chips, in the interval. And then we'd do another demonstration, because, and it was really exciting.
Yeah.
But why this was happening, I started looking at things from a different angle as well. So like when I went down to London, it's like I, at the time I was dead excited. I thought it was like going to be my big break. I thought, things are really taking off. And it turned out it was all just a big con to get money off people.
Yeah.
They just wanted to keep people on the telephone lines with the credit card.
Yeah.
So that really upset me at the time, because I was probably too naive, really.
Yeah.
And then what I noticed was a lot of spiritual people who had put on pedestals, they wasn't all sweet and light, if you like. They had ego.
Yes.
So there was very much competition of like, I'm such and such, and and I know such and such.
Yeah.
So that was a bit that sort of goes against everything you're sort of trying to learn and understand.
Yeah.
The telephone lines, again, it ended up, I had great success on it, but in a very short period of time, I realized it's just a con. It's just to get people, keep them on the telephone lines to make money for other people.
Yeah.
So this was the kind of thing where I said before, the platform, I refused to be part of that whole thing, because it's just, for me, like a money-making racket.
Yeah.
And also what I found was, I always say 98%. For me, there's a lot of people who are out there saying they can do stuff, right? And maybe they can, I don't know. But when it comes to the crunch, they had no evidence or proof, and they wasn't validating anything. It was sort of more, they were just repeating stuff that they'd learned from books, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I knew from what had happened to me, there was 2% truth. I knew there was something in it. I knew my experiences. So I had my own journey, what I wanted to know then. I wanted to know the truth about it all.
Yeah.
So that was what's got. And then what I did as well, I'd started meeting obviously lots of different people at the time, and they started telling me what I should do. Kevin, you have to protect yourself. You have to do this and you have to do that. And up until that point, I thought I'd never done, because I thought, well, why?
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything wrong. I've never been protected all my life. Why would I suddenly need to start surrounding myself, with a golden bubble and this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Now, there's two ways that we can look at that as well after what we'll talk about. But what did happen is they planted that seed of doubt in my head then.
Yeah. So that could attract things then, if you've got that.
Yes,
fear.
because I think what they'd done was they'd planted fear.
Yeah.
In my head.
Yeah.
Because now I was starting to oh, what if, I can't see what's around me. What if there is something negative around me?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I always blame, well, I don't want to blame, but anyway, I always think that was the catalyst of why I went through on some negative experiences, if you like.
Yeah.
But looking back now, I realize, it was all part of my journey. I had to learn,
Yeah.
this stuff. But anyway, but why things were very good, if you like. I used to get ready for readings, and I used to do about half an hour meditation, before giving someone a reading. And even that was more of a case of doing what you think you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Not, do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that's what they say you're supposed to do. Get yourself, breathe, get yourself relaxed, meditate, clear your mind.
Yeah.
And there's some great reasons behind it. But ultimately, as well, if you've got to do what feels right for you, and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, so at the time I was doing that, and what I noticed was, before someone had come for a reading, I noticed in my vision a US Marine was starting to stand at the side of me, so I could feel the presence at the side of me. But when my eyes were closed, I could see this gentleman in full military uniform. And he used to salute. And so, like, I at first I just recognized that he was there. And then I started to ask, like, who are you?
Yeah.
And why are you there? And I got a piece of paper and a pen, and I started writing notes down. And so first of all, it come through. He said, my name's Benjamin Drake. So I wrote that down. And then he explained to me, he said, I served in Vietnam. He says, I was awarded the Purple Star from the president for saving my platoon, but I received shrapnel injuries. So he had to come out of the army because of his wounds, his injuries, and that kind of stuff. So he started telling me stuff about him.
Yeah.
And then I asked him, why are you coming through? Why are you here? And basically, he started to explain to me that my life was a mess. And because obviously in my real life, all the pressure and the breakdown of all my businesses were happening.
Yeah.
And so, like, the spirituality stuff was almost like a bit of an escape.
Yeah.
From what was happening. And what he explained to me was, really, like, you shouldn't be doing readings and healing while your own life's a mess.
Yeah.
You need to sort your own life out, because how can you possibly help anybody else if you can't even help yourself?
Yeah.
And he started, like, breaking things up. Like, he said, like, you need to stop multitasking. You need to take each task and do it properly.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend time with your family, spend time with your family. If you're going to do the spiritual work, set a time and a date, and stick to it. And that's when it'll be strongest. So it's in a weird way, he was, like, basically telling me what I should do in my life.
Yeah.
But
And basically
but
saying, as far as your life being a mess too, but you're trying to help other people, I guess what he was saying is, you're having to learn to walk your talk. It's okay to expect other people to heal, but if you're not healed yourself, you could come across as inauthentic, even though your readings weren't inauthentic, but you yourself were in a place where your life was crumbling around you, but you were trying to help others. But if you fill your own cup first, then you're better able to help others.
I think so, 100%. And also, one of the big things was, it as well, is if you're trying to give your energy to help others when you're not in a great position and your energy is quite low yourself, you're opening yourself up to become ill.
Yes.
And and also, and then obviously we could talk about, so when your vibration and your energy is low, then you start attracting, like, things are not going well in your life. It seems like everything's going against you.
Yeah.
So whichever way you look at it, and that's what he was sort of explaining to me. So he was like, look, you need to go and sort your own life out first, Kev. He says, and then you can do this properly.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've got to be honest. So back then, Amanda, I never used to listen to good advice. I used to be very good at telling other people good advice, but never doing it myself. I was awful at it.
I think we've all been guilty of that.
Yeah, well, I was definitely one. And and then, so during that time as well, so I remember as well, I'd opened up a shop. I'd turned one of my bakeries, one of the rooms, into like a spiritual shop.
Yeah.
So I'd come full circle from going to this shop at the beginning to now opening up my own. But obviously I was trying to do it from a place of, no, I'm going to do mine, and it's going to be, authentic. It's going to be genuine. We're going to teach people properly, And I used to say to the people who come, look, I'm not your teacher, because I'm on this journey as well.
Yeah.
But we can all learn. We can all learn together.
Yeah.
And we attracted a lot of people, but we attracted so many different types of people.
Yeah.
Like people who really did have like mental health issues, people who were sort of just living in a different reality to, do you know what I mean? I mean, I remember some people coming dressed up as like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And literally thinking they were wizards.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? And then we had other people who come who were sort of like, satanic worshippers. And so it's like, look, listen, this is not for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the shop was called Love and Light.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what did happen then is there was a group of ladies who come every week, and they were into, like ghost hunting and that kind of stuff, the paranormal.
Yeah.
And again, I wasn't into any of that.
Yeah.
It just didn't sit right with me. I was probably scared, if anything.
Yeah.
So I always said to him, listen, if you go off and you do that kind of stuff, don't come back to me, because I don't know what to do. I'm still learning myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, the one morning, about 4:00 in the morning, I started getting loads of phone calls, banging on the shop door downstairs, because we were living upstairs at this point. And I come down, and these group of women, they come running in, and they said, Kev, you got to help us. And I said, well, what's the matter? And they said, this one lady, she's tried to kill herself. She's possessed and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, where have you been? And they said, oh, we went on this ghost hunt, and we've been playing with Ouija boards and all this.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Well, the thing is as well, I was just sat there, and I was like I felt sick anyway, because I was like, whoa, I'm not experienced enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then one of the most horriblest things that I've ever had to experience in a spiritual sense happened. The woman was sat opposite me, and she was like a nervous wreck. She really was, as if like not herself. She was just so high, all over the place, high rate and everything, screaming and everything. And I was looking at her, and I literally saw something slide down her legs, travel across the room, almost like, when there's a haze, like a burning field, and you can see the haze, the heat coming off.
Yes.
And it sort of moved across the room. And before I could do anything, it grabbed my legs.
Yeah.
And as soon as it grabbed my legs, I did feel physically sick.
Yeah.
And straight away, I didn't feel myself.
Yeah.
I literally felt like somebody was on me. And what made it even more like real, if you like, is the woman suddenly then started acting normal, and she went, hey, I feel okay, it's gone.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, it's gone. It's on me.
Yeah.
So and this was my very first experience of something, because up to that point, I don't know if I even believed any of that was true.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The like negative energy and this kind of stuff. And even at that point, even though I felt so like uncomfortable, and I started having thoughts that wasn't mine.
Yeah.
There was all sorts racing through my head and everything. And these women got up and left.
Yeah.
And I ended up going into my room where I did my readings, and I ended up just crying my eyes up. And I started like praying to anything, to angels, to God, to Jesus, to anything. I was like, please help me. Whatever it is that's on me, get it off me. Now, there's different ways as the years have gone by. I look back, maybe they'd picked up some kind of earth attachment, something. It felt negative to me, but I don't want to say it was. Maybe it was, when you hear about these things about like trapped souls and they just want to go to the light and move over. And
yes,
I'm not into all that. And because I couldn't see it, I don't know what it was. All I know is how it made me feel.
yeah,
And it shook me to my core. It really left me ill for about 2 weeks.
yeah,
I wasn't myself for about 2 weeks. And I really questioned whether I was ever going to do anything spiritual again
yeah,
after that. But the thing is, it's hard to explain to your missus and your friends, because obviously they just think you're off your rocker kind of thing,
yeah,
and my missus was like, well, what about your diary? Are you doing these? And I was like, you don't understand what's happened. Something's happened. I've never felt nothing like this before. And it's made me question everything,
yeah,
even whether I should do it. So that was my first negative experience. Anyway, and then I did get back into it, and a couple more months passed, and I was the best man for one of my friend's weddings, and he was having his stag do in Blackpool. And he said, "Are you coming away for the weekend, Kev?" And I was like, yeah, obviously, And there was about 20 of us, and we all got on the train on a Saturday morning, and we travelled over to Blackpool, and we'd only had, I think I probably had one or two shandies. We hadn't really started drinking, probably mid-afternoon. And I thought, I don't feel very well. But I knew it wasn't like I feel sick or anything like that. It was that feeling like when I was back in that room.
yeah,
And I thought, oh, something's not right here. And then as the hours were ticking by, it wasn't just like one energy jumping on me. It was like a pylon.
mm-hmm.
And that's the way I'd describe it. It was like every negative energy in Blackpool had decided, oh, look, there's a beacon of light here. Let's go and jump on him.
Yeah.
And that's how it felt. And I remember sort of like getting through that evening, and I just wanted to get back to my hotel room. I thought, I'll have a shower, I'll go to bed, and then in the morning, hopefully I'll feel, a little bit better. I didn't sleep that night. It was, my thoughts were just all over the place. I was feeling really bad again. I'd had a shower. Nothing was happening. I sort of felt like a little bit detached from myself.
Yeah.
Almost as if, like when people talk about like post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yeah.
I felt like I wasn't even in my body. I felt like someone had kicked me out my body.
Yeah.
But and so it was a very unusual feeling, and one that I didn't like. So then on the Sunday, I said to the lads, I said, look, I'm going to go for a walk. I need to get some fresh air. I feel sick and everything. I didn't want to tell them what it was, because I was out on a stag do with 20 men who probably thought the whole subject was a load of rubbish anyway.
Yeah.
So I went for this walk, and I always say, if people would have saw me, strangers, they probably thought, crikey, he's had a few to drink, because I was all over the place.
Yeah.
I was like it was like my ears had perforated. I was disorientated. I was falling off the curb. I couldn't stand properly. And I remember collapsing, and I had my back to a set of railings, and I felt this big figure behind me. And when I turned and looked, Jesus was on a cross, and I'd actually fell in front of a church.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I thought, and I was like, oh, please, Lord, help. And if the gates were open, I think I would have gone in the church.
Yeah.
But there wasn't open. And so I stumbled a bit further down. I've gone onto another street, and then I collapsed again. But this time I collapsed in front of a shop window, and the lights were flickering behind me. And as I turned, Mother Mary and Jesus was there again.
Yeah.
And I'd collapsed in front of an ornament shop where they sell all these big figurines. And it was like there was like the state of mind I was in. It was like they were staring at me saying, look, we're here.
Yeah.
And it was so profound. And I was like, oh. And I thought back then, if you wanted a phone home, you had to go to a phone box.
Yeah.
So, and I knew there were some phone boxes on the high street in Blackpool. So I thought, right, I'll just get to the phone box. I'm going to phone my partner and say to her, look, I don't know what's happening, but I just do not feel very well at all.
Yeah.
And I crossed over the road, and literally, as I got to the other side, I might as well have walked through another portal. As soon as I stepped in onto the other side of the road into this main corridor of the high street, it was like I was inside like a balloon, like a protective bubble.
Yeah.
And I could see and hear all the people who were drinking and having fun, and there was a few fights and scuffles and everything else. But then suddenly I become aware of all the negative energy in the area.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see it, and it was showing itself in a visualistic sense.
Yeah.
So it was showing me as in like goblins and demons and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they were trying to attack me, but they couldn't get to me because I was in this bubble.
Yeah.
And the people who were drinking and everything, they wasn't aware that they were being attacked.
Yeah.
So that their energy, because obviously they'd been drinking, they were arguing, they were fighting, they were cheating, all this kind of stuff. So their vibration and energy would have been low.
Yeah.
But I've learned since over the years. Back at the time, I didn't know none of this, but the way I look at it now is when people's energy is low, you can be attacked, and there is energy feeding on negative energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It lives on negativity.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is why it's so important that people, do look after themselves, to get the vibrations up, because when you're on that low vibration, it might start off as like anger and frustration, but that can quickly turn into anxiety, depression. Then depression can lead in, and it's a spiral.
Yeah.
And people are not aware that, your energy is being attacked while you're on a low vibration all the time.
Yes.
So although it was very fearful what I saw that day, it was almost like something out of a horror film. Now I look at it and I can understand what I was being showed. Because I always say energy is intelligence. And energy can take on the form of whatever to try and show you what it is.
Yeah.
So even if you were talking about like sort of the Christ consciousness, if you like, it's just the energy of the Christ consciousness. There doesn't have to actually be a man, with sandals and all the rest of it. It's just the energy of love and healing and and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I was sort of starting to realize. But that was sort of, it left me so ill, that experience that weekend. And then when I got back home, I thought I'd be a little bit better once I got back home. And what I noticed was when I got back home, it was like I'd brought everything back with me.
Which you most likely did.
Oh, 100%. And this is where it got really weird, Amanda, because it was like whatever was on me started to jump onto my kids and my partner.
Yep.
They started talking to me differently.
Mm-hmm.
They started acting differently. And I thought, well, like, what have I done?
Yeah. And
also as well, I knew some of the thoughts that were racing through my head. I thought, that's not me.
Yeah.
I don't think like that.
Yeah. I think
I'm not suicidal.
They're called intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, but that wasn't my character. I've never felt that way before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and then anyway, the next few days were really, really dark days, really negative. In fact, at one point, I thought I was going to pack a bag and I was going to leave in the night because I was scared. I thought, what if I hurt my partner or my kids? Because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I had this fear of like, what if I go mad, or what if I am mad? So I thought the best thing I can do is leave to keep other people safe.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a few profound things that happened then, like what I don't know if you want to call it angels or whatever, but some weird stuff happened. And I was sat on the couch and the phone rang one evening, and my partner answered it. and she said, Dad, Kev, sorry, not kids. And she said, Kev, there's a lady on the phone called Lily. She said she wants to speak to you. And I thought, I've only ever met one Lily in my life. And that was about 2 years earlier when I'd gone to this woman's house to do like a Reiki share, to do with healing.
Yeah.
And so I answered the phone and I said hello. And she went, Kev. And she said, it's Lillian O'Neill. She said, I don't know if you remember me. We met 2 years ago. And I was like, how have you got my phone number? You know what I mean? Like, because I didn't know her.
Yeah.
And she said, Kevin, are you okay? And I went, nay. But nobody could have known what I'd never told anybody. Back then, we never had like sharing it on Facebook or none of that.
Yeah.
And she literally said to me on the phone, she said, Archangel Michael has been in touch with me and he's told me to phone you and help you.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And so she ended up doing this like prayer. And she said, look, I know what's happened to you, Kevin. She said, you've been attacked.
Yeah.
Like spiritually and psychically. She said, and Archangel Michael wants me to like, help you.
Yeah.
So she did this thing where I had to go to the bathroom. I had to run some water in the bath. And she said, I want you to pretend you're scraping everything off you and throw it into the bath, into the water. And obviously it seemed so bizarre, but I did it. And as I did it, the water rippled.
Yeah.
As if I literally threw something into the water.
Yeah.
And then she did this thing where she said, I want you to surround yourself in a dark blue cloak. And she did that, this healing protection prayer and all the rest of it. Anyway, that was the start of, I started to feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I was like, how did she know?
Yeah.
Like,
did she ever tell you how she knew?
No, unfortunately, she passed away. Before I met her one more time after that, which is another story. But we never really had that conversation again. And I always say, like, I mention her a few times in like one of my books because I really have a lot to thank her for, because I don't think she realized what she did for me during that period.
Yeah.
But then also what happened as well, I started having this thought when in my head to go to a certain shop up the high street. And I'd never been up the high street anyway. I wasn't into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd definitely never been to this chemist. And I kept getting this like feeling, this like thought to go to this chemist at the top of the high street. And after a couple of days, I said to Joanne, my partner, like I said, I'm going out. And I hadn't left the house for probably a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And she said, what? I said, I've just got this feeling. I need to go to the chemist at the top of the high street. And she says, what for? I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've got to trust it. I need to go.
Yeah.
So I come out of the building where I was living. And as I was walking up the high street, it started off as like a nice day. The skies were clear and everything else. But the more I started to walk up the high street, the clouds started to get darker. And it started to rain, like heavily. And to a point where I had to step back into a doorway of another shop. And the lampposts started flickering. And it was almost like quite, I was ready to go back home. Because I thought, whoa, this is making me feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought, no, I'm going to do it. And I walked up to the chemist, walked into this shop. I walked around the aisles, and I thought, right, at the time I'd heard this thing about St. John's worts being a natural remedy or something. So I remember kneeling down, and I was just pretending to look at products, on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, someone come to the side of me, put their hand on my shoulder, and they said, Kevin, I need to have a chat with you. And I looked, and there was a woman there,
wow.
and she had a white pharmacy coat on.
Yeah.
And she was
and she knew you by name.
by name.
Yeah.
And I'd never been in this chemist before, never was. And so she said, you need to come into the back. We need to have a chat.
Yeah.
So I've basically gone into a shop I've never been in before. This woman now knows my name, and now she's inviting me into the back of the shop.
Yeah.
So she told the other woman who was in the shop, I'm just having half an hour, right? We went into this room. She made me a cup of tea. We sat down, and she said, Kevin, I knew you were coming today. Spirit want you to know, do not put pills down your throat. You have to go through this. You have to learn what's happening to you.
Yeah.
And I just thought, who are you? How do you know?
Yeah.
It was just so, I couldn't believe what was happening.
Yeah.
And and I listened to her for about half an hour, how she explained to me, that sometimes the reasons we have to go through these things, and, so we can explain it later on down the line, all the rest of it. And I left there, and about 2 days later, I went back up and I bought a bunch of flowers. I was going to go and say thank you.
Yeah.
And I went in, and there was a gentleman working in the shop. And I said, oh, he's such and such here. I can't think of a name for the life of me. And he said, oh, no, she was only a cover manager for one day. And she said she just travels around wherever she's needed. Yeah. And her husband was in the army, and he gets stationed different places. And she's like a temporary pharmacist who just goes from place to place covering shifts.
Yeah. So
now I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Anyway, but because of all these experiences what I'd had, which were very negative as well, and at this point as well, there was a lot of pressure on the shops. We were having to close some of the shops and everything else. This is where I'd actually said, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk away from it. And that's when I sort of made a promise to the universe and God. I said, but if ever you give me a platform to do it from a different angle,
yeah,
I'll happily do it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I walked away in 2000. It was 2008, 2009 when I walked away from all the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
And my life continued to get worse. And I mean, like, we went literally from like money not being an option, like no worries, to sort of not being able to put our hands on any money.
Yeah.
Like we ended up having to move into like council flat. Like everything for the next 5 or 6 years, my life just went down and down and down, even to a point where I'd get a job and then I slipped on a piece of paper on the stairs and I broke my back and then I couldn't walk.
Yeah.
So like, and that left me with like hernias on my spine. I broke my coccyx. So now I couldn't work.
Yeah.
So now I just thought, what is happening? And so for the first time in 2014, 2015, I couldn't do anymore. I literally remember saying, I give up. Yeah. I give up. And I thought, look, if you can do any better, God, crack on. Because I'm just not, I'm not doing very good at this.
Yeah.
And I remember I promised myself. So at the time as well, I'd lost my dad. My dad died. He was only about 61. He'd suffered with an illness for like 20 years. With him dying, I promised myself I would write a manuscript of everything what happened with the spirituality stuff over that 3-4 year period.
Yeah.
And I put all my energy on that. I was at home because I broke my back and I couldn't do anything. So I wrote this manuscript and I thought, one day I'll reach out to somebody. I tried to reach out to publication places at first and no one was interested. A lot of them were like, oh, we've heard it all before, and all this kind of stuff. I thought you've never heard my story.
Yeah.
But, a bit, and as well, because like at the time, Hay House was massive. And like Louise Hay, and I thought, I'd love to get in with Hay House. And, and they said to me, because it was a non-fiction book, they said if it was more of an educational book where it was teaching people stuff, we'd probably be more interested. But because it was just your memoirs, if you like.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I thought, and I reached out to a lady in Los Angeles who'd edited books for a lot of spiritual people, the Dalai Lama and all this kind of stuff. And she was very interested in it. She went, yeah, I'll do that. And then you got the email with how much it was going to cost and everything else. And then I was like, oh, can I put you on a payment plan? You know, £10 every year or something like this. And so I couldn't afford that. Things were really bad. And I remember thinking, I used to always tell people about The Secret and Law of Attraction, but I never did it.
Yeah.
I used to just tell people about it. And again, because I used to think as well, how could I possibly tell anybody about it? Look at my life. I'm hardly an example. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like my life's a mess. I've not got no money. I've got nothing.
Yeah.
And I always say, and this is what for me was a big turning point, when I was stripped back to nothing, and I mean less than nothing, I sort of found happiness. I found happiness with nothing because, and I think it was forced on me because I thought, you can't take anything else from me.
Yeah.
I've got nothing.
It's like
I've got absolutely nothing.
You totally surrendered.
Yeah, I just thought it doesn't matter what letter comes through the door. It doesn't matter who knocks on the door. I've got nothing.
Yeah.
Do you know? And so then I thought, I'm going to start doing everything that I've learned, everything that my spirit guide told me.
Yep.
Everything I've learned through like books and teachings, but mainly I try to do stuff what I've learned from spirit side of life. I trust everything I've learned from spirit side of life more than anything in this life.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm going to start implementing the stuff I've learned. So I started going for morning walks, and I started doing a little bit of meditation, and I started making a visualization board, and I made a printout copy on a computer. And obviously at the time, when you've got nothing, on your vision board is usually filled with things like winning the lottery or winning the postcode lottery or money, And mine was, it had a house, it had a nice car, it had a multi-million-pound business, it had things like I win £100,000 on a slot machine. It had all that kind of stuff. And looking back now, it was very much me.
Yeah.
Because I needed. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
But I would get really emotionally involved in this vision board. So before I go to bed every night, I would visualize myself playing on the computer, on the winning money on the games. I would see myself on the cruise ship with the family. I would see myself driving a Mercedes. I'd really get involved with it.
Yeah.
Even to a point, like I ripped myself a check out. We used to have checks back in then.
Yeah.
And I put it in an envelope with a stamp and I sent it myself. So in a few days' time, it come through the post and I opened it up. And what it did was it puts a smile on your face.
Yeah.
It just makes you think, oh. So I put this check in my wallet and I would walk around the supermarkets faking it, really. Faking it. Like I thought, I can buy anything I want in this supermarket.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't matter that I couldn't.
Yeah.
What mattered was that I felt that I could.
Yeah.
And that's what I was sending out because I understood like attracts like.
Yeah.
And you become what you feel, not what you think.
Yes.
And unfortunately, most people are creating a life of what they think based on the past.
Yeah.
So I started really making a conscious effort to get involved with these feelings of abundance, happiness, joy. And one of the things I got into playing poker. I used to love poker, but I only used to be able to play it like for 1 pence because I couldn't afford anything.
Yeah.
So I used to play these things called free rolls or 1p tournaments. And I used to read magazines and I used to have pictures cut out of these famous poker players, they're worth hundreds of millions of pounds and they've won these massive tournaments in Las Vegas and all this kind of stuff. So that was all on my vision board and all the rest of it. And within about 3 months, things started to change in my life. And looking back now, at the time, you don't realize it.
Yeah.
So what had happened is I got asked by a friend, oh, can you give me a lift one weekend to do some decorating at this person's house? And I said, yeah. I was quite handy at DIY and stuff like that. So I said, yeah. So I went and helped that one weekend. And the woman was so impressed with the job I'd done. She said, oh, do you want to give me a price for the whole house? And I said, well, like, I'm not a decorator. Yep. I just like to make a good effort. You know what I mean? So I literally decorated a house for her. And then one of her friends said, can you do my house? And then before I knew it, the phone was ringing again. And I thought, oh, I'm picking up a lot of work here.
Yeah.
So suddenly my income had started coming back into my life without me even knowing. I'd sort of started working.
Yeah.
And then I'll not bore you with all the details of that, but if you fast forward from that literally 3 to 4 years, that then become a multi-million-pound property development company.
Yeah.
So, which was on my vision board. And then during that 3 or 4 year period, one night I was sat on my computer and I'd had a game of poker. And I think I'd won about like £50 or something like that. So I thought, oh, I'll have a go on the slots, on the slot machines. And next minute I was running upstairs and I woke my missus up and I said, you need to come downstairs. Something's happening. And the money just kept going up and up and up. And it finished on 99,600 and it was about £400 short of £100,000.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And on my vision board, it had, I win £100,000 on a slot machine. And my missus at the time, she laughed and she went, it's not 100,000 though, is it?
Yeah.
And so I was like, and then, but then over the next couple of weeks, I won again.
Yeah.
And then again. And I kept winning. And I must have won like $250,000.
Yeah.
It just kept coming. And then
amazing.
Then so like I was looking at my vision board, and by this time as well, so now I'd published my first book, Spirit Energy.
Yep.
But on my vision board, it was I become an author and I write a book.
Yeah.
And so things were happening on my vision board without me even realizing. You know, I'd done it. And then obviously through the businesses were doing well, and then I had this money. So then we were going out then, and suddenly I was driving the Mercedes car. But we were going out and buying it cash.
Yeah.
And then like we bought my son a car, and I was buying work vans for the men who work for me and this kind of thing. Yeah. So it's like everything that was on the vision board was happening. And then this was at sort of the same time I literally phoned Anthony up and said, we have to build the platform.
Yeah.
We have to tell people, all this is true.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why I've had to go through all these years of, well, maybe I had to go through the negative so I could understand and learn and put things into action.
Yeah.
And there was some dark days of the soul, if you like, really bad. But through that, so I realized then, like, sort of manifestation, energy, law of attraction, if done correctly, it's so true.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I mean, a lot of people with the book The Secret, what they did was they thought they could just sit down on a couch, close their eyes and wish for something and thought it was going to come.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, it was amazing because it woke a lot of people up to it, but it didn't really explain.
Yeah. It gave
how
you,
to do it.
It gave you part of the way, but it didn't put the icing on the cake. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much more to it. And then, so that was the start of, okay, let's build the Drake Michigan platform. Let's share everything what's happened, and what's happened over these last 15 years. Because during these 15 years when I was away from it all, I was still having experiences. I was still going and helping certain people.
Yeah.
So like, I remember at one point we'd had a job. I was helping a friend. He had like a carpet cleaning business. And we'd pulled up outside this house, and she hadn't come back from work, so we thought we'll have an early dinner, an early lunch. So we sat in the car, but as I was sat there, I could feel this client's dad. So I said to my friend, I went, Edmondson. And he went, what? And I said, she's lost a dad, this woman. I said, and his name is Ed Edmondson. And anyway, he went, all right, we'll see. Anyway, so when we went into her house, there were some sympathy cards on the fireplace. And he said to her, oh, who's died? And she went, oh, I lost my dad a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And he said, what was his name? And she went, oh, Mr. Edmondson. Edmondson. So it's like,
yep.
I mean, the level, this is what I talk about in the book as well. So like, I mean, the level of information that I used to, or still do, share with people and tell people.
Yeah.
I sort of have my own like standards and my own bar. And if I wasn't getting it to a certain level, I would say, oh, I'm not really even going to pass that on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I've seen the other side of how good it can get.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I've sat in a chair and I've opened my eyes and the gentleman who's crossed over is literally sat on top of me.
Yeah.
And I can see his hands, the energy of his hands and everything. And he was able to let me experience his last moments in this life.
Yeah.
And he was sat in his car and I could see the street name. So I told the lady in front of me, I said, he died in his car in this was the street name. He was picking his kid up from school. Yeah. I said, he starts having a pain in his head. I says, and then the blood starts trickling back and I could feel and taste the blood in my mouth.
Yeah.
And then I have a massive brain hemorrhage. And the last thing I saw in this world was his car keys swinging with like a yellow acid face on it.
Yep.
And then he moves into the spirit world.
Yeah.
And then he said to me, she's got my car keys in her handbag. And so she unzipped her bag and she took them out and there it was with the little yellow acid face. And she said, that's exactly where he died and that's exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
So when it's good, I mean, it's just out of this world. I mean, we can do an whole episode just on the amazement. You know what happens in a reading?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like they can take you on journeys. They can literally walk you through people's houses and tell you where stuff is.
Yeah.
You know, they would take me to their gravestone and tell me where they're buried.
Yeah.
And then you can read the gravestone.
Yeah.
You know, they'd tell me. I had a lady in the office a couple of weeks back here. She was a marketing lady. And her uncle come through while she was talking to me. And I just said, look, I just need to share with you, you know, because your uncle's here. And so we explained some information, what come through. And then I said, he keeps mentioning the 4th of April. And anyway, so she sent a message to her auntie. And she said, when did Uncle Peter die? And the text message come back while we're sat there, 4th of April.
Yeah.
And she just said, she's like, oh, and I said, because he's just told me. Tell her, say the 4th of April to him. They'll know what you're on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when it's good, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
Now, but what I love, and I've just written another little book. It's only a little pocket book.
Yeah.
And it's called The Language of Spirit, The Intelligence of Energy.
Yep.
And what I wanted to sort of explain to people was, it is great when you have a reading and information comes through, but what's even better is when you understand what spirit are showing me and what I'm sort of deciphering to get you that message.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you wouldn't never believe, you know what I mean? So it's like, even the other day we had a lady in here and her dad come through, and the way he come through on his motorbike that he used to have when he was younger. And he had a bundle of branches and sticks, you know, under his arm.
Yeah.
Now, when you see flashes from spirit and when they're showing you that, I know for a fact that will mean something.
Yeah.
I might not understand what it means, or you know what I mean? But that's where the client will always get the most. Like, so I said, look, your dad's coming through. He's mentioning this motorbike, but there's something to do with these bundle of sticks under his arm.
Yeah.
And she said, oh my God, she said, my dad always had a piece of wood under his arm. She said he was a joiner, and we always used to say, wherever my dad was, you knew where he was because you'd see the piece of wood first.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the thing is, now from my point of view, when I'm watching the information, what he's trying to explain to me, I knew there was a reason why, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just unbelievable.
It's like they talk in symbolic, like they use symbols.
Yes. Yeah, and not always. Like, so I have like a mixture. Like sometimes it'll come through as in images and pictures, like watching a film. Yeah. Sometimes I can not physically hear, but I can hear words without it being like physical. Yeah. And also I can feel stuff.
Yes.
And it just blows. I mean, there was one time a lady come to see me, and her name was Tracy Baker, right? And she'd come to see me, and she was sat there, and I said to her straight away, I said, I feel like your dad's here. And she said, oh yeah, she said, that's who I want to connect with. Yeah. Right. So I'm watching this information, and in my mind's eye, I can see an old like steam train, and I can see this gentleman, and he kept shoveling the coal, throwing it into the furnace, but then he kept wrapping up the bag, lifting it up, and pointing to it, and then pointing to him. And I must have watched it 3 or 4 times, and I just thought, I don't know what you mean. I don't understand it. So sometimes when you don't understand it, you're better off just telling the client.
Yeah.
This is what I'm getting. Right. And I said, listen, I feel like I've got your dad with me. For some reason, he keeps emptying half of the bag of coal out, throwing it into a fire, wrapping it up, and then pointing to it, and then pointing to it. Anyway, she starts laughing. And I said, do you understand what that means? She went, yeah. I said, what is it? And she said, my dad's name's Arthur Cole. I went, no way. And she went, honestly, my dad's full name is Arthur Cole. Yeah. And it's like, so it's like and it's like, that's exactly, when you think about it, that's what he was showing me. Yeah. He was showing me Arthur, half a bag of coal. Yeah. Right. And so I always get so much more excited sometimes than the client. Yeah. But I've had some profound experiences where, like, sometimes you can read something from a book, but I would never tell somebody that unless I've experienced it, because otherwise I'm just telling someone else's stuff. Yeah. So, like, in the past, I've read spirits might carry on growing, in the spirit world and all the rest of it. Yeah. But I don't know that was true until one time I was given a reading, and unfortunately, this gentleman, he'd accidentally killed his sister when she was a baby. He dropped a match into a pram, and a dress caught fire. And anyway, so it was a tragedy and everything. And but she come through, and she was about 38, and she was gorgeous, really very attractive lady, brown curly hair, teeth, everything. Yeah. And I described it, and she was literally like the spit of, one of her other sisters, or them, that mom, that kind of thing. Yeah. And so for me, that was my evidence of they carry on growing. Yeah. So because so there's that, and then what I learned as well is like, because people ask me all the time, they'll say like, that people, when people lose people, they grieve and all the rest of it, and sometimes people can't move on. Yeah. But I've never had anything from spirit to suggest to me that they're bothered. Yeah. They seem more aware than us from a higher perspective. Like, look, but what I have learned, or what spirit has told me as well, is they want you to be happy. Yeah. And if you're still attached to somebody, like in a negative way, emotionally, whether like sometimes people have been abused, or you hated someone, you might have hated your parents or whatever, yeah, and then they've crossed over. What they showed me was you're still connected. Yeah. And what happens is, not only can they not move on, but it's stopping you from moving on. Yeah. Yeah. And again, so when I talk about energy, and I always bring everything back to energy, is if people start to understand how powerful the energy is, or how powerful we are. Like say you're thinking about somebody and then suddenly they phone you, or you're constantly thinking about someone and then you walk into a supermarket, and that is the energy bringing you together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But what spirit showed me was, you can't move on with your life if you don't cut that cord.
Yeah.
You've got to let it go. And they want you to be happy.
Yeah.
You know, and so I always say to people, look, you don't have to forgive and forget the past. No one's saying to you, you know, oh, go around and say, oh, let's forget. No. But what you do have to do is say, look, okay, it's happened.
Yeah.
You know, I have to accept it. And now what I have to do is I have to move on with my life.
Yeah.
Because I can't give this any energy because it's ruining my life.
Yes.
And that seems to be the story, what spirits seem to be, you know, trying to convey all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and they're there supporting us. And then, so my life really has just been, well, from 28, and I'm 46 now. It's just gone on an absolute roller coaster of a life that I never thought would happen.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much, whether that's the psychic stuff, the medium stuff, the law of attraction stuff, synchronicities. You know, I've never actually physically seen an angel, but I believe I've been in the presence of angels.
Yeah.
I've had some profound experiences, like where I remember going to one lady, and she was like an angel lady, if you like, right?
Yeah.
Never met her before in our lives. Absolutely, like, lights up a room. Unbelievable energy with her.
Yeah.
And as soon as I sat down, we was having a cup of tea, and she said, "You're ready, you." And I was like, "What?" And this was like in the first few weeks of everything happening to me.
Yeah.
And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Do you want to go and meet him?" And I was like, I don't know. Yeah, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we went into the back conservatory, and 2 or 3 of my friends were there as well. There was about 4 of us. And I literally stood in the middle of the room, and she stood in front of me, and she put my hands at my side, and she said, "Right, I just want you to relax, listen to the music, and just go with it," right? Anyway, so I relaxed, I closed my eyes, and as I was stood there, it was like someone had turned a floodlight, a massive heat, the heat and the light, and it sort of just engulfed me.
Yeah.
And as it happened, I felt my arms lifting up at the side of me, and I could feel they felt like talons, like a bird had taken my hands. So I was thinking it was the woman. I thought, oh, she's lifted my hands up, she's holding my hands. And then I felt myself starting to rise out my body. And I started to go higher and higher, where I thought, I'm going to bang my head off the conservatory roof in a minute.
Yeah.
And then I sort of like, I went high enough where my feet would have been level with my head. And it was like I was just floating around like a balloon, but I was still engulfed in this beautiful light. And it felt so beautiful and comfortable.
Yeah.
So I just thought, I'll just go with it. And then after a bit, I felt myself come back down, back into my body. My arms got lowered, that kind of thing. And then I heard the voice of the woman, and she said, "Right, open your eyes, Kevin." And I opened my eyes, and my friends are all just looking at me. And I just like went and sat on the bed, and I was like, "Oh my days! What was it? Is that an angel? Like, is that heaven? Is that, I don't know?"
Yeah.
And they're like looking at me, and they go like, "Kev, what are you doing?" And I went, "That was amazing." That I said, my hands lifted up, and I went, "What's going on?" And they said, "Nothing happened. You've not moved." And I went, "Yeah." And I said, "She took my hands and she lifted," and she went, "Stephanie's not even been by you.
Yeah.
You've just been stood there on your own."
Yeah.
So now I was like, whoa, what's happened?
Yeah.
So that was and then it got even more weird then, because then she said, "Do you want to know who you was in a past life?" And I was like, "Yeah." Right. And so like I thought, here we go, like, you know. And then it was dead weird. Like, you know, like you hear stuff and you just think, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, of course I was, yeah.
Yeah.
And so she turned around and she went, "Yeah, you were Genghis Khan." And I thought, behave yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know,
Yeah.
your ego is like, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, emperor of the free world, or what, you know, this guy.
Yeah.
But you know, but realistically, you're thinking, yeah, of course I am. But, you know, and you're like, and then she said, "Do you want me to prove it to you?" And I was like, how could you prove it to me? And she said, "You do know how Genghis Khan died, don't you?" And I went, "No." So she goes on to tell me this story that he forced this most beautiful woman in China to be his bride, but she had already promised her love to someone else. So on a wedding night, apparently, and I've looked this up since. So on the wedding night, apparently, as the story goes, she put a knife in a pants.
Yep.
And she cut Genghis Khan in his privates.
Yep.
He bled out into a coma, and she threw herself out the window to her death.
Yep.
And then apparently Genghis Khan never woke from that, right? So I'm listening to this story, and then she said, and I guarantee, she said, you'll still have them scars on you now.
Yep.
Now, the thing is, I'd never met this woman in my life.
Yep.
And there's no way I would have ever shared private stories from my childhood, right? But when I was a kid, I was born with this thing called hyperspadias, right? And I ended up being in hospital a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
And they had to literally cut me in half and reconstruct everything.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, it formed into like scar tissue. It formed into this thing called BXO, which was like some type of like cancerous growth thing.
Yeah.
So I had to have these massive operations again. So I was left with a scar all in the same area.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that sort of validates her story, but it's like, how could you know that? Say that to me, and then, but I have got them. You know, when they talk about like you'll have a birthmark or a scar from a past life, and you've brought it through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then that starts opening up all kinds of things like, you know, past dimensions, realities, life, and then so the last 12 months, especially, has opened up a new way of thinking. As in, we're looking into everything. You know, even to the point where like some believe we're in the Matrix, you know, we're in some kind of video game. Other people believe we're trapped angels. You know, some people believe this is Satan's world and we're stuck here trying to get out.
Yeah.
And it's a reincarnation trap. It's a never-ending loop.
Yeah.
You know, for you to grow. So there's so many stories out there, and I've not pinned my tail to any of them at the moment. Yeah. But what I do know is, if we are in some kind of game or some kind of virtual reality or whatever, that does put a lot of energy towards manifestation and law of attraction.
Yes.
How you can ask for something and create it. You can create it on another level. And then it comes down if you like. So there's a lot of things I could look into. And I've so many stories I'd love to share with you. So I remember once as well.
Sorry, can I tell you a quick story when you were talking about that's all right. The scar and reincarnation. I've got a granddaughter. She's 6 years old, and my mum, as I spoke to you before we started recording this podcast tonight, my mum passed away of a massive brain bleed, like it was a stroke / brain hemorrhage. And her name began with an H, and my granddaughter's name begins with an H, different name, but the same. And mum was known by the nickname H. People used to call her H. And my granddaughter is nicknamed H, although we do call her by her full name as well. But when my granddaughter was born, she was born with a strawberry birthmark on her head in exactly the same spot that mum had the brain bleed. And when my granddaughter started talking, when she was at the stage where she could string sentences together, not when she very first started talking, but when she was a little bit more advanced with her speaking, she came to me one day. I had her here at my place, and she came to me in the kitchen out of the blue, not, instigated by any pre-discussion with her. She just came up to me and she said, "Nana, do you remember when you were in my tummy?" And I nearly hit the floor. I'm like, oh my gosh. And my mum was an artist and a photographer. And Heidi, sorry, I just said her name, but anyway, my granddaughter, she is such an artist. Like she's only 6, but she is years ahead of her age when it comes to what she can do artistically. So I actually do feel that she is mum reincarnated. Yeah, so she's come back as her great granddaughter. So time will tell if we see other traits and things. Yeah, but that was just
it's amazing. I mean, that's incredible. But
yeah,
the thing is, it's like, that's why as well, from a human level, it's hard to comprehend, because from a soul level, your granddaughter there could actually have been, like you said, you're like your mother and everything else. But from a soul level, it's a completely different way of looking at things.
Yeah,
they're on a journey. But when we're in this physical meat suit, we only sort of see things to a certain level that we can comprehend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I've always said this as well. It's like, how can you have a conversation with someone who's lost someone to cancer or they've lost a child? They're not ready for a conversation where, oh, there's a bigger plan and everything happens. You know what I mean? You can't have them conversation. It's very difficult. But what we can do is, it's like, where you focus your energy. Like, because what I've seen as well, especially since events of the past and then the events over the last few years.
Yeah.
So we all know what's happened, with, the medical stuff and all the rest of it. It's horrible, right?
Yeah.
And all the rest of it. But now what's happened is you've got all these people now who are fighting and putting all their energy into, they want repercussions, they want results, they want to blame somebody. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying there's not people out there who are responsible or to blame and all everything, but the thing is, you've got to look at where you're putting all your energy.
Yeah.
And afterwards, where's it going to leave you?
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing now at the moment, I don't know if you've found this as well, a lot of people are sort of on their arse.
Yeah.
They sort of don't realize why their life is falling apart. They've got no money. They're losing their jobs. They're falling out with relationships. It's like, and these are good people.
Yeah.
And now they're like, well, I'm a good person, but why is all this happening to me?
Yeah.
So now they're looking for answers. But so again, and this is one of the reasons why, we started going into the field of setting up like the courses, what we want to teach people. Like, so we've set up the manifestation mastery course that comes out in January. You can pre-order it now. I'm selling it a little bit here. You can order it now, but it comes out in January.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is, through that course, I'm going to sort of jump in and walk with people so they can, like, look, you need to put your energy into the right things. Because for me, that's what Spirit is saying. They don't want you to spend 10 years moaning about what happened to them, or the injustices. What it's done now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, how much can you grow and evolve your soul, your spirit? Because you might have to come back, again and carry on. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, how much can you grow? So that's, and also as well. So. And I want people to realize, and I've just said this in one of my videos. What I did was, you could actually be living a life what's not your life.
Yeah.
You could be living a life what is your experiences, because your subconscious mind is taking in everything. So now you're living out this life, what you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
But that might not necessarily be you.
Yes.
So we need people to detach from everything, detach from your surroundings, detach from people's opinions, people's beliefs.
Yeah.
Because when you've got a fresh blank piece of paper, now you can start to build who you are.
Yeah. So you wipe that slate clean and start
100%.
fresh.
Because what one thing we say is, Amanda, like, when you come into this world, your parents give you a name.
Yep.
But that's not you. It's just a name. And then for the first 7 years, you were given this like new set of programs, you know, what to believe in, how to respect her or not to respect her, how to eat, how to dress her, you know, how to act.
Yeah.
So after the age of 7, when we leave this sort of, you know, the godlike child state,
yeah,
all we are really is a
program.
production line of programs.
Yeah.
And it's only when you start sort of waking up to all of this, and then this is where it gets exciting as well. Because then when you see things like the music, what Mark Devlin's talking about, you're like, oh, they're telling you that, you know, there's so much information all around you, good and bad. They're telling you, you know what I mean? Like you could be looking. The other day, I asked the question to the universe. I said, am I on the right path? I believe I am, but I still have self-doubts and, you know, procrastination and all the rest of it. So I asked specifically, send me the words, you're on the right path. Right? And I don't care how it comes. It could come in lyrics in a song, overhearing someone in a supermarket, on the side of a van. That's not my job. The universe brings it how it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And then over the next couple of days, then I sort of started to notice 777. And I'd like a car would drive past me, and I thought, oh, that's nice. Oh, it caught my attention, the license plate, and then something else, or it just caught my attention, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna see what it means. Anyway, I forgot about it, and then the next day I was walking the dog, and a car went past me again, and I went, oh, 777. I'll look that up when I get home tonight. Yeah. And so I went in and I typed it into our friend Google, and I just put, what's the meaning for 777? Angel numbers, and it come up, and it big letters. It went, "You're on the right path." Yeah. and like people don't realize the synchronicities, what's taken place there. But my life's, you know, it's so profound what's been happening in it. Yeah. So that's why as well, I have to believe in it. Yeah. I have to sort of tell people about it. I have to promote it, because, you know, if I can help one person have a more unbelievable life than they're currently living, then I suppose it's worthwhile. Yes. Because there's definitely more to this world than people realize. Yeah, absolutely. And there's this, and what I was going to say before as well. So I remember my partner's grandma had died quite a few years back. And you know, when you have one of them dreams and you know it's not a dream. Yes. You're just like, no, that was real. That was anyway. And as she was walking away from me in the dream, I just said, Grandma, I went, is there a God? And she just looked back, and she was only a little woman, like, and she looked back and she smiled at me, and she went, Kevin, who do you think the giver of dimensions is? Bruh. And I remember waking up thinking, because I didn't even know what God meant. I don't know if it means anything. It's just a word, isn't it? You know what we're saying? And I thought, giver of dimensions. Oh my God. And then, but my teachings, or what I've learned and experienced, I do believe we are in these levels of dimensions and realities and everything, which probably coincides with what the Sikhs and the Hindus teach and Buddhism teaches. Yeah, you know, and I've had some amazing masters come through to me over the years. You know, so I remember once during a Reiki session, I got took up by the Lady Green Tara into the white energy, if you like, the buzz, and she took me to the Master Ganesh. And he gave me some gifts for the people who were giving me healing. Yeah. But what he told me was, anytime you want any blockages moved in your life, call upon me, and I will remove blockages from your life. Yeah. Like, and this is what I said. So I got that information from spirit, if you like. Yeah. And then years later, you'll be watching something, or you'll look something up, and you're like, oh, I got told that. Yeah. Yes. So it's almost like confirmation. Yeah, you know, to what you've received. So I went for a walk the other day, and I did a little, like, you know, these shorts what you do on YouTube and that. And so I was sat on my bed, actually, sorry, and I asked the universe. I went, Just give me some information to tell people what's happening. And straight away in my mind's eye, I could see a plate of lasagna. Right. Now, straight away, people might go like, what? But I know what's happening. And I know that they're explaining something to me.
Yep.
And then what they showed me was the layers of pasta were literally the dimensions, right? And the meat in between the pasta is the story of us.
Yep.
We all have our story. We're the meat. We're the story that's in between the layers.
Yep.
And then, but what they were explaining to me, apparently, we're in a very, very important time in history. We're about to go through a new layer. And it's like, and in some ways, it's like not everybody's going to be ready for this transition.
Yeah.
For the next level, the next layer.
Yeah.
Now, this all makes more sense to me because 15 years ago, people like Lillian O'Neill, who I met, she told me back then, she went, Kevin, all this, what you're going through now, it's not for now. And I said, what do you mean? And she went, in the future, you'll end up telling people about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was gutted because I was like, no, I want it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now she was right. 15 years later, and now it all makes more sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when people are, waking up or they're having their first spiritual experience or they're, Anthony got took on a like a truth movement. He wanted to know the truth in life and corruption, and all, and government and, the evils of this world, if you like.
I went down all those rabbit holes too, but I've tried to steer myself back on the spiritual path now.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things. So when I grabbed Anthony, I have much love for his knowledge, what he's learned.
Yeah.
But my worry is, where's that rabbit hole took you?
Yeah.
Right. Because even if you found out the truth about, whether it was 9/11, whether it's the latest, stuff, what's been going on for the last few years, whatever.
Yeah.
Where's that going to lead you?
Yeah.
Because you're going to be, if anything, it's going to make your energy very angry, frustrated, which is going to lead to despair. But you've only got a short period of time here.
Yeah.
So you need to put you first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's I'm not listening.
What I did is I looked at it like I was exposing the darkness and shining a light on it so that it came to the forefront. And I did do a lot of the rallies and things like that, but it got to a point where you were in an echo chamber anyway.
Yeah.
And so I realized the only way to beat the system is to take yourself right out of the system and create your own reality.
100%, Amanda.
Yeah.
100%. And this is where it gets really deep as well. So if I meet someone who said that, let's say somebody who's into UFOs, the galactic, Federation, whatever, just because I've not experienced that doesn't mean that's not real in their reality.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what reality they're. I do believe we're living in a time now where you could be stood next to somebody at the traffic lights and you're both actually living in completely different realities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, if you're putting all your energy into that, well, that's what you're going to create.
Yes. Yeah.
So now my worry is, if you're putting all your energy into the evil, the darkness, the corruption of this world, the injustices that have been done, what further down the line are you creating for yourself?
Yeah.
That's my only concern. You know what I mean? But now I understand, but we have to fully, stand for something.
Yeah.
But for me, the people at the top, if you like, more people a lot higher up than us, they already know how all this works.
Yeah.
And for me, the likes of, like I always say, the likes of Elon Musk, he realizes to get man to Mars, you have to make people's subconscious believe we can go to Mars.
Yeah.
Because that technology might not even be in this reality yet.
Yeah.
You have to create it by enough people thinking about it and then bring it into this reality.
Yeah. And again, it depends what your perception of Mars is as well, because I've gone
and that's another amazing, because ultimately, I mean, the stuff I've come across lately, which, I never really give it, I mean, the Bible talks about this, the firmament, and maybe, but the thing is, whether you believe or not, it's a fascinating subject to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? Because the thing is, if we have been lied to forever about everything, that opens up. I mean, there would be anarchy, wouldn't there? There would be, do you know what I mean? Because if you found out tomorrow we're not on a spinning ball and there's a dome or whatever, that changes everything.
Yeah. Well, I came across that in 2016 and I did a lot of research, and I definitely lean towards, I know we're not on a spinning ball. I know what NASA shows us is all CGI and smoke and mirrors and all, lies and everything. I used to say I was a flat earther, but I've even backed away from that now. And I tend to just say that I believe that we're in some sort of realm. But I still don't know what it is. I do tend to believe that there is a firmament above us. But what's beyond the firmament, I don't know. And I think the exciting thing about this is that now there's so much more to discover, and there's so much more that we don't know about. Whereas if you go with the narrative, the mainstream narrative, all stones have been rolled over, all forests and lands have been explored, there's nothing new under the sun. Whereas now there's just so much more open for investigation and for interpretation and perception, and it's just exciting.
It's amazing. And I mean, the thing is as well, and this is where, to be honest, you can't just have a 5-minute conversation, because every subject, what you like, so like, let's say you were someone who did believe in a certain way, but then someone else could bring something else to the table, which makes sure, like, it contradicts everything.
Yeah.
Because it's like, so, like you said, like, say planets and space and everything else. But if we were in some kind of matrix, then none of that's actually real, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
So then that contradicts what, and so that's where the conversations have to be had, because the thing is, each subject ends up contradicting each other.
Yeah.
But the one thing what I've definitely 100% where I would sort of will go with is energy, frequency, vibrations. I think we could all, probably from the science community, the theological community, I think we could all agree there's something.
Absolutely.
I think most people would agree there is some kind of higher power, whether that's just universal law, whether it's a God, whether it's, whatever it is, it just is. I do believe we are the creators of our own story.
Yeah.
What I've come to think is, a lot of people think they're only an extra in the film, not realizing that you're the star of the movie.
Yeah.
And you're not just the star of the movie, you're the director, and you're the inspiration behind the story.
Yeah.
And you're constantly,
the more synchronicities happen to you, the more you become aware of that too. Like you were saying about the signs, when you ask for signs and you're continually showing. It's like the Truman Show with Jim Carrey. And things just kept popping in front of him, because he was asking a question, and next minute, bang, it's there, and then it's there, and then it's there. And and I think the more you're in tune with that vibration and frequency, and you're tapped into the synchronicities, and you become aware, you start looking for answers and looking for confirmation of things. And because most people just go through their days totally blind to what's in front of them.
100%.
But when you start to become aware and conscious and actively looking, that's when you start finding which way to go and what path to be on, and you get the breadcrumbs.
And you'll know yourself, Amanda, once you are awaken, or you start to wake up to this way of thinking and looking at the world like that, you can't close your eyes again.
No. You can't unsee.
You can't go back in the box.
Yeah.
So now you look at everything from a different angle. I mean, and I talk about like, you know, where things can be contradictory, because I've done readings where I've had people in front of me and I've told them things that's going to happen 12 months from now.
Yeah.
You know, so then suddenly, well, then that opens up a conversation about free will.
Yeah.
And also scripted realities.
Yes.
Because the way I look at it is, what you've been doing for the last 6 to 12 months has already created a ripple in your life.
Yeah.
So over the next 3 months, there's a good chance what you were doing for the last 12 months is going to play out.
Yeah.
Unless you slam on the brakes.
Yep.
And you say, no, I'm going to change my future reality, which has already been set in stone. Well, not set in stone, but, you know, we're set. And I'm going to go in a completely different way. And that's, for me, why when people start to get onto manifestation, law of attraction, all that kind of stuff, they normally go through a really turbulent period before things get better.
Yeah.
And people say, why? Well, the thing is, you've just put the brakes on 30, 40 years of life heading in one direction.
Yeah.
And now you've just slammed the brakes on. Now, the thing is, now the universe is listening to what you're saying. So now, like, if you want a new job or a new life or a new relationship and all the rest of it, well, now the universe is saying, well, if this is what you really want,
yeah,
well, I'm going to have to get a few things out of your life.
Yeah.
So that that mean you might have a fallout with a relationship. You might lose your job. Things don't always happen in a rosy, happy unicorn way.
Yeah. Well,
but the universe is delivering what you asked for.
Yeah. And we wouldn't learn if everything was just rosy as well. We learn through adversity. We step up to the plate more and we become stronger. Yeah. I just want to go back to Benjamin Drake before we continue with all this juicy stuff. But your guide, Benjamin Drake, do you want to just talk a little bit about that, about who he actually was? And
I'm glad you've brought that up, because so when I got these messages from Benjamin Drake and I wrote it all down, someone I knew at the time said to me, Kev, Vietnam War wasn't that long ago.
No.
He said, why don't we try and look him up? So we did our friend Google again. We researched him and we found him. And we found all the information that I'd written down. Some of it was online.
Yep.
And then what we found was, we found his email address. And his email address was www.ilovejesus.com. Right now, so at the time, I was thinking, this is another sign, synchronicities, Anyway, so being naive as well, we emailed and phoned his family.
Yep.
To say, hey, we've got your husband with us here. He's my spirit guide.
Yeah.
And it never went down very well. They was not very happy at all.
Yeah.
Because they were born again Christians, and they said, we don't believe in all that voodoo.
Yeah.
Please never contact us again, and all this kind of stuff.
And it would have scared them too.
Yeah, and really looking back, I should have probably had a bit more. I was coming from a place of excitement, and I should have probably been coming from but this is where it took an amazing twist. So, everything happens for a reason, because before they hung the phone up, they said to me, he's not dead. Right? So I said, what do you mean he's not dead? And they went, he's in a coma. So we were like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then apparently, because after he'd come out of the Vietnam and the army or whatever, he went on to become a doctor in his field. And because of his shrapnel injuries, it must have over time affected his walking or whatever. And he'd slipped into a coma.
Yeah.
So now I was thinking, so when he was coming through to me, he was in a coma?
Yeah. So his soul had left his body while his body's in the coma in the hospital. His soul or spirit or etheric body had left his physical body, and that's what he was using that body to communicate with you.
I believe so. And when you think about it, so do you remember when we started, when I was a kid and I saw my brother and sister sitting up in bed away from there? So for me, that sort of proves your spiritual body can leave the physical body.
Yes.
And it can travel and it can do other, because we're all connected. Don't matter if I know that as well when I've done readings. It don't matter if you're on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
You don't need the person in front of you to, you know what I mean? We're all connected. And so that was really like profound. But then over the coming weeks, he wasn't there in readings.
Yeah.
So then, and to be honest, I didn't contact him again because obviously I didn't want to upset him.
Yeah.
So I never really knew, did he come out the coma or did he not?
Yeah.
But later on over the years, I found out he must have come out the coma and he carried on living.
Yeah.
And I think it's only been in the last year or two recently that he has actually died.
Yeah.
So
has he come back after he's passed? Has he come back?
Well, but this is the thing. I would like to say yes, but you don't know if it's in your head.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? So, and that's the important part. You need to separate what is actually happening. So I need more evidence before I can, go on record and say,
yeah.
Because ultimately I could probably, could start a reading and maybe part of my brain wants him to be there or what, you know what I mean? So I need more evidence from him first.
Yeah.
But I remember 3 weeks before my dad died, I'd fell out with my family. I'd had one of them relationships where we'd fell out, never spoke, and all the rest of it. And obviously, because I moved up north, my dad had gone into hospital for an operation, which wasn't unusual. He'd ended up with a colostomy bag, and they were going to reverse the operation and all this kind of stuff. And I'd found out that things wasn't going so well. He hadn't woke up from the operation properly or something, and so I phoned the hospital. And because I'd fell out with my stepmom and that at the time, I said, I'd asked the nurse. I said, "Can you tell me how my dad is?" And they said, "Oh, we can't tell you." And I said, "Well, I'm his next of kin. I'm his son."
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, there's a password on the account, right? And you have to ask the person what the password is." Well, to do that would have meant I had to get in touch with my stepmom.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I'm not getting involved in this, tit for tat.
Yeah.
What's it called? Because we'd had like this silly petty fallout. And so I just thought, well, do you know what? My dad will be all right. He always comes through, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, over the next few days or whatever else, I woke up 3 nights running and I woke my partner up and I went, my dad's in the room. And she went, what do you mean? I said, I can feel my dad in the room.
Yeah.
And then, anyway, the first couple of nights, I dismissed it. On the third night, I woke my partner and I said, my dad's in the room. And he's told me, in 3 weeks from today, I'm going to be so angry. And anyway, and it was that was the message.
Yeah.
And I remember 3 weeks to the day from what's it called, I got a phone call. And it was my brother, my younger brother. And he said, has anyone been in touch with you, Kev? And I went, no, why? And it was strange for him to phone me anyway, so I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And he just said, you do know Dad's dead, don't you? And I was like, what? And they went, yeah, they turned the machine off and everything. And I was so angry. I said, I've never known my real mom.
Yeah.
That's my real dad, even though we've had our fallouts and everything else. We still had that dad-son love, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I said, you should have phoned me and give me the chance to go and say ta-ra.
Yeah.
And he was literally like, I said, when's the funeral? And he said, tomorrow. He said, are you coming down? And I went, no.
Yeah.
Because I said, if I come down there, I said, I'm too angry.
Yeah.
And I was livid.
Yeah.
And I literally, again, I decided, right, that's me done. And I was hurt. I mean, again, I was sort of released it. I don't have no animosity towards it. But again, it's one of them things, I've got to just let it go. It's happened.
Yeah.
But it did make me very, very angry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like someone took that decision away from me.
Yeah.
To say goodbye, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
So,
but then he did come to you anyway to effectively say goodbye in his spirit body.
I think so.
Yeah. And then he also gave you that confirmation by letting you know that you're going to be angry in 3 weeks' time, and then that
Yeah,
happens.
it did, and something weird happened as well on the day of the funeral. A lad who I knew through having a game of poker or whatever, he sent this thing on Facebook. It was like a little cartoon, and it was a son at the grave of his dad.
Yeah.
And in the cartoon, it said something like, "I know you're not going to be here, but don't worry, you don't." And it was just so profound for me to see that, and it was almost like he was telling me from beyond the grave, something.
Yeah.
It was just like, and when them little things happen, it's hard to explain to other people when you're having these serene moments, or when synchronicities are happening, or yourself, there's more to this what's just happened.
Yeah.
But then when you're telling someone the story, it doesn't seem as
yeah, and because it's not as relevant for them either, so they don't connect the dots, or they don't get that feeling that you get of what happened in the situation and the series of events and things like that.
No, it's true.
Yeah. So we might start winding it up now, but before we do, if you want to just because we'll definitely have to have another. I'll have to have you on again, because there's just so much we could just go on. Yeah, because it's what is it now? It's 9:20 p.m. my time here, because I'm 10 hours ahead of you. So but if you want to just plug your course again and your books, where can people find you? Where they can get onto your platform?
So online, obviously, www.drakemichigan.com. If you're into, if the spiritual things, what you're into, and that's all your thing, the first book I released was Spirit Energy, which is literally all the little stories, the TV, the telephone lines, my first tarot readings, the spiritualist churches, that kind of thing. So for the people who are sort of into the spiritual stuff, which is fantastic, there's that. But then as we've gone along then, so for people who sort of are coming from a different angle, where they want to make changes in their life, they want their life to be better. It's not really going to plan, that kind of thing. So that's when we got into all the law of attraction and manifestation, and understood how energy worked. So on the back of that, we created, and this took us a long time, but we created a journal called Create Your Dreams. And all these are available on Amazon now. And what that is, that's a 365-day journal. And then what you can do is there's information to guide you through, but also there's pages where, so you can write sort of your affirmations, to keep you on track, basically. And then what we do as well is, to support that book, I've just started doing a weekly episode called Level Up Your Life. And what that is giving people help and advice, questions and answers. So if you're doing the one of the online courses, or you're doing the journal, I don't want people to think that they're on their own. You know what I mean? And so, like, just even if you just want to reach out to someone, look, I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad week, and just where, and someone says to you, listen, let's get you back on track. Let's refocus your energy. Because what we don't want to do is, we don't want to spend too long in a negative vibration, a negative thought pattern, because that's going to create, more of that. So we want to sort of support people. We don't want to just like sort of buy a book or buy a course and then you're on your own. And then what we did was, then I've just released The Language of Spirit, The Intelligence of Energy, which is a little pocket book, what you can have in your handbag. And what I thought was, if that does well, I'm going to make that into, like a more in-depth book. I'll like it. So instead of just getting an overview of a chapter, I'll write the full chapter. So we'll see all that one. And then it's been an amazing, exciting year. And then, so what we've done was, to end the year, we've just released a pre-order for the Manifestation Mastery course. And that's going to be like, probably about over 100 hours of content. It's going to be 10 modules, really breaking everything down, everything from the basics and the history, all the way through to how you can implement it in your life to start making these changes in your life. So people then can have the journal, the course, watch the online free content, the level up your life videos, all that kind of stuff. And then what we wanted to do as well is we noticed, and I know this from my past, is sometimes when you go on these holistical journeys or any journey, really, you can go through periods of financial difficulty.
Yeah.
And then you're reaching out and you're thinking, well, how am I going to earn some money? So what we did was we set up an affiliate scheme. So if so you can sign up and you get your own code. So like let's say it said Drake, Michigan, Amanda.
Yeah.
And then what happens then, if you told a friend and they sign up for the course, not only do obviously they buy the course, but then you get money. So we tried to set something up where people could, just by sharing what we're into, you can start creating your own little income.
Yeah.
So that, so there's an affiliate thing where you can, on the journals and all the books and all the courses. And also we sell a product called Masterpiece, which is heavy metal detox for people who, want to remove graphene. It's really, so there's a lot of people into that kind of stuff. And it's, there's this amazing a company in America to do with marine plasma. And it's just a couple of drops that you put on your tongue, and but there's been great results. And to be honest, we've done really well on that. But that's also an affiliate scheme. So what I would say to someone is, if you're going to buy that, you're better off joining the affiliate scheme, because not only do you end up with the product, there you end up with a bit of money as well.
Yeah.
So we tried to create something where people could earn a side income, or if things are not great, they could start to make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Because when you realize, when you're doing manifestation, law of attraction, when you realize that all this is starting to work, then you start doing more of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you want to share it with people too, because you're excited and you can see the positive changes in your life. Or you even have people come up and say, wow, you're doing great, or you're looking so good. What have you done? What's changed? Yeah.
Exactly. And you'll know this as well, Amanda, right? One of the hardest things is really trying to convince people to sort of like get involved. It's almost like you could give it to them all for free, and they're still like hesitant.
Yeah.
So and I don't know if sometimes people they're scared of change, or do they really want to change?
Yeah.
Because that's another fear, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's opportunities there for people, and that's sort of what we're going to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, that's great, Kev. Well, definitely have to have you on again. Yeah. So I'll just
listen. If all my sort of my new vision board, if all that comes true, Amanda, I've got big, ambitions. I want to sort of tour Australia and have these talks. I want to tour America. And I want to go to Michigan. We want to carry on building the platform.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if I am on the right path, which I'm told I am, and I had a soul reading and it told me this was we'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, even myself, I'm going through one of these periods where you're questioning everything. Am I on the right path? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yes.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But we have to trust it.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. All right. So just hang there for a minute while I just wind the show down. So, all right. Thanks everyone for joining us again on episode 8 of Caravan of Consciousness. And I hope everyone out there has a great Christmas, whatever you're doing, whether you celebrate Christmas or you don't. But it is the holiday season. So I'm just, wishing everybody all the best, and have fun with your family. And I'll get this up as soon as I can. And I've also got another show coming up shortly as well, right before Christmas, but I don't know whether I'll get it up before Christmas. But I've got Mark Devlin coming back on the show again, just to do a little bit of a recap of his Aussie tour, and also going forward with his new book that he just released. So that's something else to look forward to. So, all right, everyone, thanks for joining, and we'll see you soon. Ciao.